live. It is loading.
Alrighty.
Okay. And we are live. We are live. Uh, yes, I think we're live now. It's YouTube. The screen keeps loading when it's already gone live for about 10 seconds. So, but anyway, I think we are definitely live now.
Alrighty.
Flooded Cinema, episode 24. I'm joined today by Angelite, and today we're traveling to the Orient to discuss two samurai films. So, had you seen either of these movies before? Oh, say hello. Introduce yourself.
Hello, I am Angliite, at least that is the screen name, George. And I'll just take this moment to reiterate the little forewarning that I told you before we got on.
Yes.
Yeah. So, I live in the desert, and I often experience internet outages and stuff like that. So if I disappear from the show, that is the reason. And if I am silent or unresponsive to a question for an extended amount of time, I am struggling, suffering, fighting something of a little stomach bug right now.
Mm.
And in such a case, I will be fighting for my life on the toilet.
Well, I don't know. You can never have
Suffering,
perfect timing.
bleeding, stretching.
Was it something you ate, or you just picked it up?
It could be anything really.
True, that's true. Um. All right. Well,
As for the questions, oh,
go ahead.
sorry, there's something of a delay on the line, I think.
No, that's okay. Go ahead. Go ahead.
No, I was just going to say, you asked if I've ever seen these movies before. The Samurai Assassin, I have not. The Tom Cruise one, I did when I was a little child.
Okay. Very nice. Yeah, the Tom Cruise ones have been a personal favorite of mine over the years. I don't know, something about it resonated with me, and I think it's left indelible marks on my proclivities. I'll say that much. Um, but I guess we'll begin with Samurai Assassin, and you've also informed me that your viewing experience of this was particularly immersive because you did not have subtitles.
Yes, I only discovered that there were subtitles after I watched the movie. So I like to think that I had an extra historical viewpoint into the movie. The movie takes place in a specific historic period in Japan. It's in all in Japanese, and I like to think that my unique viewing experience enabled me to really get into the character, the time, not having the distraction of subtitles, so I could further immerse myself into the movie.
Mm. So what did you think of it then?
Uh, it was all right. Um, as I said, I really don't remember a lot of it except for the beginning, um, when they are marching into the temple or whatever
Yeah,
uh,
the fortress.
the fortress. After that, the language barrier was a little hampered my ability to remember the film a little bit.
Why would you watch it for 2 hours and not like? Were you just thinking, oh, I have to watch this? But what?
Well, I'm not that savvy with technology, I'll say.
Okay.
Um, and just didn't cross my mind, really. Would you rather start with the Tom Cruise movie
No,
first?
no.
Do you have
Well, I mean, we
something?
might as well get this out of the way.
All right, all right.
Well, so is
Well,
I
Mr.
mean,
Flood.
I guess I'll take it from here. So, the movie is pretty much it's set in a similar time period actually to the Tom Cruise film. It's like the Meiji Restoration, um, which is when Japan basically modernized towards the end of the 19th century. Um, and so this movie is about um, basically one shogunate or whatever trying to assassinate the leader of another shogunate. As part of the political things that are going on. And the main character is this Ronin whose master was killed, and so the movie begins with the people trying to assassinate this other guy. So the assassins are trying to work out. They think that there's a like a rat in their midst who's giving away their information, and so they initially suspect that it's the main character, and so basically the whole first third of the film is them discussing whether or not. So there's the framing device of them discussing, oh, what's the deal with this guy, and so there's all these flashbacks and cuts between them discussing his life and then it actually showing his life, and then later on. He's fallen in love with this woman, and then that woman goes and visits his adoptive father, and then they have another discussion, and this is another framing device of like cutting back and looking at his past basically, and yeah, so it's I thought it was quite modern, the structure, in that it had all these flashbacks and it jumped around, but it still felt very present with it. Like, it wasn't, I didn't find it frustrating that it kept going to flashbacks, because sometimes I find that annoying in movies. And the cinematography is great. It looks amazing. I should say this movie came out in 1965. What did you think of the cinematography?
I thought it was very nice.
Yeah.
Apart from that, one of the things that really stuck out to me was the beautiful scenery. The costumes were very nice.
Yes.
And I'm not just saying this for a laugh, right? But the people involved. There's all that joking about Jomon and Yayoi and stuff like that. But the physiognomy of the people in the movie I found to be very interesting, in that maybe just because I have the eyes of an old man, but they almost appeared to be somewhat Western people. Like a lot of the movies are kind of Japan today that you don't. I know we're trying to keep it optical. I have a particular word in mind for the people of Japan today in film and stuff.
They look like they've gone through several more decades of seed oils and things like that. We can say that much.
Absolutely. Yeah, absolutely. So that was very interesting. It helped me to relate to the characters, looking something like them.
It helps you relate to the characters that you couldn't understand a word of what they were saying.
Well, yeah, but it was something comparable to watching a Russian film, not understanding what they're saying, but still being able to look at them, and they look like me. So.
Yeah. No, it was very interesting physiognomy. Like, I mean, because Japanese people are more. I mean, it's not just a joke that they are the more. I don't know. Hyperborean of the Eastern Asian. Of the Eastern Asian whatever, that mark of history of that sort of was still present, certainly in the 60s there and over in Japan. But yeah, the costumes and the sets are really good.
Sorry, something of a delay as well. I was just going to add that even back in the 60s, you see the way that people look, and it really is remarkable how fast of a turnaround they have seen in Japan.
Yes. Well, these would have all been people born before the war, so I think it's people born after the war is when you would probably really notice. You'd notice more of a difference. Would be my estimation.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, the costumes are great, and so the cinematography, just beyond really nice composition and good shots. A lot of the shots there's longer shots. It's not like Tarkovsky where it's like every shot is like 2 minutes long or anything like that. But it's just a slightly slower pace of editing, and I really noticed that because I watched these two movies back to back. So it was um, when I jumped into, and this is something I'll talk about when we talk about The Last Samurai, but I really noticed the stark contrast in the style of the editing and like the pace of it, because there was just there's slightly more meditation to what was going on in Samurai Assassin compared to um, the last Samurai. But what did I get up to? Oh yeah, and it's revealed that or it's heavily implied that basically the guy that they're trying to assassinate. Well, I mean, is it that, I don't know if I want to get into spoilers necessarily, but um, basically there's a connection between the guy they're trying to assassinate and the main character. It turns out, and that's sort of the twist at the end. Um, and there's also there's a few other sort of turns in the plot. So at a certain point, there's no more flashbacks, and then it's sort of all just in the present. And then there's more twists and turns then, and um, there's a really amazing sequence at the end when they're all fighting. Do you remember that? Do you recall that bit at the end?
Uh, I'll be quite honest, I don't.
Well,
Making a wonderful first impression on my first appearance in Flooded Cinema.
well, anyway, the movie ends with a really, really good like battle sequence. Like it's one of the best ones I've seen in ages. I don't know. It's really well shot, really well choreographed, and it feels like a full on clash of two sort of samurai gangs basically. But yeah, that's pretty much Samurai Assassin. I would recommend it. Directed by Kihachi Okamoto. Um, yeah, I mean, I don't know. It's sort of your standard like samurai themes of honor and you know stuff like that. So it's a really solid samurai film, and it's not it's one of the not as well known ones, so it's good. I think we're giving it some light here today, or at least I'm giving it some light today. Um, recommending it. Japanese cinema in
And
general
if
is
you
good.
watch it, make sure you can the subtitles.
Yeah, I guess you can attest to the fact that the subtitles are essential to the experience.
Quite essential for the Western man, yes.
Yes, for the non Nippon speaker. Uh, yeah, Samurai Assassin. I think that's pretty much. What else have I got written? Let's see if I've got anything else written down. No, I'll leave it there. Like I don't want to get too much into the plot because I mean not that spoilers really matter too much for this movie, but there are a couple little twists and turns in it that I really appreciated watching it. So anyway, we'll move on now. Do you have any final thoughts?
I have a couple of comparisons that I would draw between the two movies, but I'll save them for when we're talking about the next one.
Yes. All right. Well, we'll discuss that right now. The Last Samurai. So, Tom Cruise movie. You can take it away. You give the lead in for this one.
Right, and I actually can lead because I watched it and it's in English. Um, so, Tom Cruise is an American captain, I believe. He fought with General Custer at Little Round Top. He was under, I forget the name, was it a colonel who he served under, who he
Yeah.
has that feud with? A colonel, right? So Tom Cruise was a captain under a colonel. He fought with General Custer at the Little Round Top. he's supposed to be this badass, hardened, experienced warrior, American fighter, and a couple Japanese gentlemen who are looking to modernize Japan come over and they contract Tom Cruise and his old colonel to
Mm-hmm.
train the Japanese Imperial Army, to modernize it, get it up to snuff,
Mm-hmm.
and uh, eventually, uh, Tom Cruise is, I forget his actual name, so I'm just going to say Tom
That's fine.
Cruise.
Tom Cruise is good enough.
Yeah. So he's training up his Japanese soldiers in the modern
Yes.
ways of warfare, and they have to rush into a battle. Um, and of course, because the soldiers are not trained enough, Tom Cruise keeps saying they're not ready, they're not ready.
Yes, and
Well,
then
no one
we have
ever
that
listens,
that
seemingly.
um that great sequence where he's yelling at the guy to shoot him. And I just want to say in general, Tom Cruise is great, is amazing in this. He's perfect. He's the movie star's movie star basically. He's really good. It is funny that like the his introduction at the beginning, he's supposed to be this like degenerate alcoholic basically, but he still just looks like Tom Cruise. So it's a bit a bit
Yeah.
silly, and I find it that his like colonel or whoever it was Billy Connolly. That was like an unusual casting choice, I suppose. I don't know. When I think like epic, historical drama, I don't think Billy Connolly. No offense to him.
Yeah, it was a bit of a weird casting.
He's
Um,
fine though. He's perfectly good in the role. It's just sort of it's like, he's
oh
in
yeah.
this.
Um, I don't know. Did you want to like give an overview of the movie and then break it down? I've never watched the Flooded Cinema before, so I don't know how you
Well,
break this
no,
down.
no. Normally, it's like we'll go through the plot sort of slowly, and then at each step we'll break down. Okay, what was good about this? And then if we get into a tangent of, when a character is introduced, we will discuss that character or whatever. So it's supposed to feel like a natural flow of conversation. Is sort of the idea.
Right. Something that was on my mind, and it pertains to really the beginning of the movie, though it's something that's revealed over the course of the movie, is Tom Cruise's PTSD.
Yes.
And frankly, generally, I didn't really like the movie overall, but that was especially one of the things that I don't think I was really sold on.
Mm.
I, in my personal opinion, I would say that the script overall was not very well written. The flow, I didn't really like the flow, but I don't think they did a good enough job. Ha- I think with something like alcohol abuse or something like that, he's supposed to be so upset, this veteran with PTSD, but
Yeah.
uh, they didn't really sell it hard enough. Like, I don't think,
No.
if that makes sense, they didn't sell it hard enough to the
No.
extent, like, it actually gets in your minds that this is a troubled man, because it seems like it's something in the background.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, it's the movie isn't necessary. It's sort of just like it's a bit of a crutch, writing crutch. Like, oh, he's got this. He's sad or whatever. But yeah, they don't do anything really with it, and it's particularly when he. So later on, he's when he's captured by the samurai and he's taken to their, samurai village or whatever. There's just like a minute long sequence of him just like effectively just getting over alcoholism, like, which I mean, I think maybe I'm just too nostalgic for this movie. I've got the rose tinted glasses, but yeah, it is kind of dumb. Like he just gets over being like a PTSD alcoholic in about 2 minutes in the movie, and then that's the last you hear about that. There's no sequence of him getting drunk and stuffing up. Like he gets drunk like once at the beginning, and then he's still completely competent though.
Hmm. And honestly, they attempted a very emotional detoxification scene. You know, when he's
Yeah.
at night screaming sake, sake,
Yeah.
yes, alcohol. I think, honestly, I laughed at that scene because in order to have a scene that emotional and that intense, you have to build the proper framework for it.
Yeah.
And since they didn't do that, it's just some bizarre, kind of
Yeah.
out of place scene that just makes you laugh.
Yeah, like he never came across as like a full on alcoholic. He came across as maybe um, in that opening scene, maybe that day he just decided to get drunk, but it doesn't come across like he's this perpetual, dipsomaniac or whatever, you know. Um,
Hmm.
but I mean,
And in
it is again, this is it's a big budget mainstream type movie, so I guess we wouldn't necessarily expect the same sort of depth maybe from other films, but yeah, that is the writing of aspects of it is sort of the weakest part.
yeah, when I watched the film when I was a child, the two scenes, you going into the movie now, the two scenes that I remembered were the battle in the forest with the recruits, and then the battle at the
Yes.
end. And I think that's really 90% of the budget in writing went into that because that was very well done, I would say. It's kind of
Yes.
the movie can sort of be called like a violence pornography or something like that.
Mm. Well, there's
Just
basically the two battle scenes, and then aside from that, there's really not that much action, I suppose. Oh, when
mm,
the ninjas come to assassinate him, and that was another ridiculous scene. It didn't make any sense. Like, how did they slip past the guards? That number of assassins didn't quite make
yeah.
sense. And I thought people
Hmm.
weren't supposed to be able to come in and out of the valley because of the snow or whatever. And it's so that didn't really make that was sort of the dumbest part, one of the dumber parts as well. But really, the movie. So okay, he's gone over to Japan, and then we have this like Anglo fat Anglo guy who's like the translator nerd type character. Um, and he's your standard sort of comedic relief type guy. What was I about to say? I don't know. Yeah, so he's over there, and then he gets captured, as we say, after this forest battle, which is a great battle scene. Um, and then the movie for the next like hour and a bit is just him hanging out in this village and learning the way of the samurai, pretty much. So
Hmm.
if you're not interested in that, then you're not going to enjoy
Um,
the film.
yeah. Um, as for his, who is that one character? I know that I've been watching the Rush Hour movies very recently. Um, there's that one Japanese actor. Uh, I forget his name, but Tom Cruise has a feud with him in the village. Do you remember?
Oh yes, I don't know, remember his name. The guy that sort of was beating him up.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Um, that was also something that I think was a little rushed, a little not really
Mm,
fleshed out, um, because um, Tom Cruise, I believe he was brothers with the guy, the Red Samurai that Tom Cruise killed in the woods,
mm,
and he started hating him for that. And when Tom Cruise gets to the village, he just like looks at him
yeah.
like sideways in two scenes and then beats him up with sticks. And that's really it for the rivalry. And there was a lot more potential um, for that rivalry to really blossom. I know Tom Cruise has different difficulties in the focus. So um, I don't know any of their names. Good heavens, the samurai who saved Tom's life in the forest, right?
Yeah.
He
The main
is
guy.
Tom's benefactor. He is Tom's benefactor and Tom's detractor. His main detractor is the wife of the Red Samurai that Tom killed.
Yes.
Um, and I think that was a pretty all right dynamic they had going on there. I think that was adequately fleshed out
Yeah.
as compared to other parts of the movie. But this other like side detractor that Tom had in the
Yeah.
brother of the Red Sam, I thought that was a little odd and out of place.
Yeah. I
Just
think that was just to
how
sort of have there be, because he's learning how to fight with swords, and then I think to just give that sort of a narrative, rounded out narratively, it's like, okay, he needs to have some guy that he, once he can beat this guy, then it signals to the audience, oh, he's gotten good at swords. And so they're like, okay, what are we going to make this character? Because you can't just have a random character necessarily. So they're like, oh, we'll make him the brother or whatever. I guess that's what I'm imagining the writing process was.
yeah. And I would just say that it's a great shame that they did limit the role of that actor, that character, because that had a lot more potential there, but alas,
Hmm.
it was not brought out. So, what did you think about not just talking about the movie itself? We can get back to that in a minute. But what did you think about the themes of the movie, the general,
Hmm.
messages and all that sort of thing?
And this is where this movie is very interesting, and yeah, it's very strange because the whole point of the movie is it frames the um, westward expansion of like the U.S. as similar to the Meiji Restoration of the Emperor, um, as like kind of, it basically says samurai equals um, Native American, and so
Mm-hmm.
it's kind of uh, it frames the modernization of Japan as, I mean, basically as a bad thing, or it's like as this American colonial thing, which to a certain extent it was, but it is just a very bizarre framing of those two things. What did you think of it?
When I finished the movie a couple nights ago, I thought to myself, and admittedly, I don't have the most deep of thoughts, and so I may not be able to elaborate on this, flesh this out as well as someone else might. But at the end of the movie, I thought um, that it was a weird paradox in that the movie is supposed to have this anti-Western narrative, as we're supposed to sympathize with Tom Cruise and the Last of the Samurai, drawing the parallels with the Native Americans.
Mm.
Um, it's supposed to be an anti-Western movie, but it's through a Western lens. Um,
Mm.
how exactly I would flesh that out, I'm not sure. It just seemed to be, well, I don't want to get deep into politics here or anything like that, but um,
Well, just as you
like,
can say what you like about politics, but just don't. I don't know.
well, not like that kind of thing, but I was just thinking it's like a poor, very poor critique of the West in a way, and in insofar as it is coming from the presuppositions of the West.
Yeah. Mm.
So more, I guess, attention is paid. Well, not kind of. I would say more attention is paid to the like technological aspects of the modernization
Yeah.
as opposed to the social.
Yeah.
When you have the um, Japanese people talking about all these great modernization things that are coming in from the United States. It's always
Yeah.
based around technology,
Yeah.
but it's not. They don't really
The
touch on the.
ideological imports.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I wouldn't expect a movie like this to do that. But there's
Well,
like
yeah.
another funny thing is they say, oh, these samurai do not dishonor themselves to fight with guns. And it's like at that point, samurais had guns for like centuries, which is kind of
Hmm.
hilarious.
one of the parallels I was going to draw between this movie, made after 60, 80 years of seed oil, and the other movie was that in Samurai Assassin, what little I understood, but just watching the movie, the traditions, the samurai in the Tom Cruise movie, they're supposed to be these preservers of this great and ancient tradition, but you
Mm.
don't really feel uh, like there's any real depth to what they're portrayed as protecting. There's a little, talk of Bushido and
Yeah.
the traits of a samurai, but in the older movie, in Samurai Assassin, even though I didn't understand anything that was being said, you can see something of a deeper tradition there, a better
Yeah.
portrayal of
Yeah.
this great tradition that is being lost.
Yeah, I think well, because and this is one thing I wanted to talk about was I think it was really the effect of it for me was very exaggerated, but yeah, when I because I watched them back to back, and so in Samurai Assassin, you've got these long scenes of people just sat still, and then the camera it cuts between them, but they're sat still, and it's still and eventually and it looks there's this more meditative thing about it, and then the Last Samurai, like the scenes between the two characters, they're constantly like walking around and like the blocking and stuff of the way they've shot it. It's very American in its like how its approach and stuff, and yeah, and the what they're talking about, it might as well be motivational posters like level sort of Bushido wisdom. It's like you are a tiger or something, basically. um, you know, and yeah, it is a shame, like, because this like idea for a film, I think if something like this had been made in say the 80s, it probably would have been a lot better. It probably would have had a lot more um, depth to it. But I think it's like at this point it's 2003, so there's already been this major
Mm.
like intellectual and aesthetic decline in films. Not that films were ever necessarily whatever, but I mean I still love this movie because it's just one I grew up with. I can't dump on it too much, but yeah, like discussing it with you now, the flaws are emerging. Um,
Mm.
I forgot what my point was. But yeah, no, I agree with what you're saying. They don't really ever show like the whole framing of it is like technology bad, no technology good. Like they don't really go deeper than that in terms of distinguishing what the samurai are doing versus what the emperor wants to turn things into.
Mm-hmm.
It's almost like the samurai, rather than them being like warlords that wanted to maintain their power and like their political system when the emperor didn't have that much power themselves, which is sort of more what the Meiji Restoration was about to a certain extent. I mean, I'm not an expert on that, but they're framing it as like samurai are like these wood elves or these like elven mystical types that just want people to be walking around in rice paddies or something all day long, whereas that's and yeah, they don't really explain at all. They don't give any good reasons for any of the political conflicts. It's just like it's happening because that's the movie, you know. But
Mm. Yeah. And to draw another comparison, from the beginning of Samurai Assassin, which I do remember quite well, and
you're impressing yourself for that.
and what's the movie? The Last Samurai.
Yes.
Um, so, just to follow up on what you were saying as well, in the beginning of Samurai Assassin, they're all meeting in that. I forget whether you said it was a castle or a temple, but there's that scene where they're talking, having their first meeting, and all of the men are dressed in their traditional clothes with the hair done. They're sitting down. They're very still. They're steady.
Yeah.
Their eyes are locked on the man who's talking,
Yeah.
um, and not understanding what they were saying. There's still a contrast between that
Yeah.
and, for example, when Tom Cruise is talking with the a samurai benefactor who's taken him in
Yeah.
after he comes out of the Buddhist temple, it's very modern. Like, he
Yeah.
gets sassy with him. He,
Yeah. Yeah.
uses these effeminate modern ways of speaking.
Yeah. You would never. It's yeah. That's like. I think that the wife comes across in the Last Samurai. The wife comes across as uh or the widow, I should say, I suppose, to be more specific. She comes off as relatively more traditional, I guess, as a character. But yeah, it is really like it's almost like Yellowface or something. I don't know. It's just like they it feels like they didn't watch any like Japanese movies before making this. Or it's just like, oh,
Mm.
it is really much. It is really. They might as well. It might as well be Tom Cruise gets dropped into elves versus dwarves or something. You don't really get that essential Japanese feeling. But you know, and there's cute scenes, I guess, with him and the family and that, but yeah, the Japanese characters, they lack the seriousness that the Japanese people would have.
Mm.
Um,
Yeah. I would agree that the widow, the wife of the Red Samurai, is very trad and breedable. But when you step back as well, you can. So both of these movies are about, or they take place in the time when Japan was modernizing and doing away with its more ancient traditions. And you can, if you step back and you look at the two movies, both of them about that, you can also see within the movies or between the movies,
yeah,
there's still this, still the Meiji Restoration is still going on, to put it in a term, and just kind of tying off what we were saying, you know, two movies set in the same time period, but you can see that the modernization and everything, the loss of their tradition is still going on.
mm.
If they made this movie today, there would be anime girls and whatever. It would be the samurai would I don't even want to go there because I'm about to say something very terrible. But you would see that the tradition that they had is still ever plummeting into the Kali Yuga. The depths.
Yeah, it is interesting watching, two films cover the same political climate. I mean, the first movie is not really about the politics as much. It's more just like it's the interesting time period for them to pick. At least on first watch, I'm sure there's probably more to it. I'm just not that familiar with Japanese history, but yeah, and there's just an overall irony, I think, with The Last Samurai. That it's a film made by Americans about. It's just this. It is a very typical. I don't like to dunk on Americans because I think it's like a sore loser type thing because they are basically still number one. But it is just sort of your typical American ego of like, oh, let's just I mean, and I don't care about this sort of thing. It doesn't bother me, but it's just, oh, let's put Tom Cruise in X historical event and then give the American perspective on it, basically.
Mm-hmm.
And I think there's a lot of other ironies with The Last Samurai because The Last Samurai came out, 2003, and it was during the 90s that everyone thought, oh, Japan's going to be like the other like superpower in the world. And, at this point, China was rising and beginning to eclipse Japan. and it was only 5 years later that they hosted the Olympics, and it's just it's interesting that this movie is also reflective of a decline in super mainstream interest in Japan, or at least like that first wave of it with like Pokemon and Dragon Ball, etc., etc., of the sort of mid to late '90s. That was really the full-on mainstream peak of interest back when there was still like monoculture. And it's just it's interesting that this movie is about the decline of the samurai, and then it is a point of decline in interest in Japan broadly as well. Anyway, that's my thoughts. Let me just. Is there anything else? I mean, I don't think there's too much else to say about these films, really.
Mm-hmm.
Have you got any more thoughts?
Perhaps I think that The Samurai Assassin is certainly a movie
I
of
love
great
how
extent.
you like really appreciate Samurai Assassin. You just didn't have the subtitles. Reminds me, I knew a guy once. He sat. I can't remember what movie it was. It was like, would have been like The Departed or something like that. And he sat down to watch it, and he watched it with the director commentary, and he just thought that was part of the movie. He didn't realize that wasn't part of the movie. Yeah, but I just
Well, I'll just end with saying quickly, Samurai Assassin, a lot greater depth. We could have talked a lot more if only I had known there were subtitles. But as for The Last Samurai, I really think that we've covered the gist of it. It is, as we've said, kind of that kind of movie.
it's a mainstream Tom Cruise blockbuster. I think given it's this Tom Cruise vehicle or whatever, it's a decent Sunday afternoon type movie or watch with your dad type movie is how I describe The Last Samurai. Like, I wouldn't go so far as to say it's bad and that I don't recommend it. I still like it. Um, Even though it's thematically and a lot of the writing and things are kind of dumb in retrospect, but it's still good. It's still good. But Samurai
Yeah,
Assassin, I would highly recommend. Which I think I already said. Highly recommend, and recommend with subtitles. So.
with subtitles, absolutely necessary. Yes.
um, do we have anything else to say?
Um. Well, I already said that the battles were very well done.
Mm.
I wanted to ask you about the last battle. What did you think about? Obviously, we've already established that it's not a movie. It's a good movie, but it's not a movie for like an autistic critic or something like that. But
Yeah.
what did you think about how the last battle played out, the tactics used and everything, and just the scenes?
Um, I mean, the tactics don't feel like it doesn't feel like actual tactics or anything. It just feels like movie tactics in a oh, we'll trick them and then do this blah 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 sort of thing. It's not like a super realistic battle, but it's a really it's a well done battle. It's very epic, dramatic. It reminded me a bit of like Braveheart, that sort of them sacrificing themselves for their freedom type thing.
That's a good comparison. Yeah.
Uh, yeah, I
Yeah,
think
I thought it was the only part of the movie that evoked some kind of emotion was the last scene. Well, not the last scene, but the last battle in the movie. And despite, as I said earlier, with Tom Cruise's detoxing scene, how it's kind of funny because it doesn't have the proper framework to build up,
Yeah.
promote, hold such an emotional scene. I do think that the last battle held enough emotional gravitas. I don't know, there's
Yeah.
another better word to use, but it did hold enough emotional weight to be very good. You do feel sorry for the samurai, even if the samurai have been established the whole movie as some kind of wacky forest monks who just want to be barefoot and pregnant all the time. Um, Seeing them die, it does carry a particular
Mm.
weight, a greater weight.
Mm. Um, yeah, no, I totally agree. I think, yeah, the battle scenes are definitely the best parts of that movie. Um, the plot gets a bit
Yes.
convoluted towards the end as well with the Last Samurai, but you know it's good. All right, I think we've covered both of these well enough. We've said yeah, we've said our piece on them,
Yeah,
so
I think we've done a pretty good job.
I
I
think
have
so.
to shit really bad, so I should probably let you go here. But thank you very much for having me on.
No
It's been
worries.
a lot.
Thank you very much for coming on. Yeah, everyone go follow um, Anglite 3. I mean, that's where you're at for now, I suppose. Who knows? It'll probably be Anglite 4 in about two
Yeah.
days. Given your
Yeah,
track
season four's
record.
coming up. Any time.
All right. Well, thank you everyone for listening. Goodbye.